Emily Carter and Sheikh Khalid Al-Mansoor looked like the perfect couple, an American designer swept into a world of unimaginable wealth by a powerful Dubai businessman. But behind the glittering facade of palaces and luxury, their marriage hid dark secrets. Within weeks of Khalid uncovering Emily's forbidden affair with another woman, he was dead, poisoned in his own home. This is the shocking story of how a love story built on glamour unraveled into betrayal, scandal, and murder. In the heart of Dubai, where skyscrapers shimmer against the desert sun and luxury cars glide along spotless boulevards, Sheikh Khalid Al-Mansoor stood as a man both admired and envied. At 50 years old, he carried the weight of his family's legacy with pride. His father had built the foundation of their fortune through oil, but Khalid expanded it into global investments, luxury hotels, and real estate ventures that stretched far beyond the Gulf. His name was synonymous with success, and his face was often splashed across business magazines, a symbol of ambition and prosperity. Despite his achievements, Khalid's private life was far less fulfilling. Twice divorced and childless, he carried the reputation of a man too focused on his empire to nurture lasting love. Yet, he longed for a partner who could bring warmth to his life of power and responsibility. That longing was unexpectedly answered during a business trip to New York. While overseeing the renovation of one of his hotel properties, he encountered Emily Carter, a 32-year-old interior designer with striking features and a confident air that caught his attention immediately. She was ambitious, witty, and unafraid to challenge him in conversation, a quality few in his world dared to show. Their connection was instant, and soon, dinners turned into long weekends, and weekends into whispered promises of a shared future. When Khalid proposed, he did so with grandeur. The wedding, held in Dubai, was a spectacle of opulence, attended by politicians, celebrities, and foreign dignitaries. Lavish floral arches framed a ceremony broadcast across local media, presenting a picture-perfect union. For the world, it was a fairy tale, a powerful sheik and a beautiful American bride. But as the celebration faded and reality took its place, shadows began to creep into their golden marriage, unnoticed by those dazzled by the glittering surface. Emily's new life in Dubai began like a dream. She moved into a sprawling palace adorned with chandeliers, marble floors, and private gardens that stretched further than she could have imagined. Every need was attended to by staff, and every desire could be fulfilled with a simple request. Yet the grandeur that enchanted her at first soon became a gilded cage. Days were filled with social obligations, appearances at charity galas, and carefully curated dinners where she was expected to smile, pose for photographs, and embody the role of a perfect wife. The glamour that once thrilled her began to feel like an exhausting performance. Behind closed doors, Emily struggled with the cultural expectations imposed on her. Privacy was scarce, freedom was limited, and loneliness crept in during long hours when Khalid was away managing his empire. In those moments of isolation, she turned to the familiar comfort of her phone, reaching out to old friends back home. Among them was Claire, a woman from her past with whom she had once shared more than friendship. Their conversations started lighthearted, filled with nostalgia, but slowly reignited a spark Emily thought she had buried. Trips to the United States, originally framed as visits to see family, became secret escapes where Emily and Claire reunited. The intensity of their relationship deepened, rekindling emotions Emily hadn't felt in years. While she played the role of dutiful wife in Dubai, her heart and desires were invested elsewhere. She knew the risks but convinced herself that as long as she was discreet, no one would ever know. The distance between appearances and reality grew wider with every passing month. What she believed to be a harmless double life was slowly turning into a dangerous secret that threatened to unravel everything she had gained. Khalid had always been a man of discipline, meticulous in both his business dealings and personal life. Over the years, he had developed a keen eye for detail, and it was this very instinct that made him suspicious of Emily's behavior. She had grown distant, often distracted at social events, and frequently requested trips back to the United States under the guise of family emergencies or design projects. At first, Khalid dismissed his doubts, telling himself that she was simply adjusting to the cultural differences and the pressures of her new role. But when inconsistencies in her stories began to pile up, He could no longer ignore them. Emily's spending habits also caught his attention. Private accounts showed unusual withdrawals, and there were charges from obscure hotels in New York. When confronted casually, she brushed them off with explanations that sounded rehearsed, leaving Khalid unsettled. His pride prevented him from pressing further in the moment, but deep down, he knew something was wrong. Torn between trust and suspicion, he chose to act quietly, unwilling to risk public embarrassment. Hiring a private investigator was not a decision he took lightly. For weeks, the investigator followed Emily's movements during her trips abroad, documenting her every step. The results were devastating. Photographs showed Emily with another woman, not in passing gestures of friendship, but in moments of clear intimacy. Alongside the images were detailed reports of her meetings and evidence of ongoing communication. Khalid was shaken to his core. It was not only the betrayal of marriage, but also the cultural and personal humiliation such a scandal could bring. His family pressed him to take swift action, urging divorce to protect his reputation. Yet Khalid hesitated, conflicted between the anger of betrayal and the lingering love he still felt for his wife. Emily's world began to collapse the moment she sensed Khalid knew the truth. He had grown colder, more distant, his silence carrying a weight heavier than words. She feared each day might be the one when he would announce their divorce, strip her of her title, and send her back to the United States in disgrace. The thought of losing her position, wealth, and carefully constructed image filled her with dread. Even more terrifying was the possibility that her affair with Claire would become public, turning her into a scandal both at home and abroad. What began as anxiety soon twisted into desperate calculation. Emily convinced herself that if Khalid was gone, her problems would vanish with him. Divorce would no longer be an option, and the fortune she had tied to his name could remain within her reach. In her mind, removing Khalid was not just a choice, but a necessity for survival. Late at night, when the palace halls were quiet, she began scouring the internet for solutions. Her search history turned dark. Keywords like fastest poisons, untraceable deaths, and natural-looking heart failure filled her browser. Packages began arriving discreetly, hidden among luxury deliveries that raised no suspicion. Small vials of dangerous substances were tucked away in her wardrobe, waiting for the moment she felt brave enough to act. She started small, experimenting with doses, slipping minute amounts into drinks, observing Khalid for changes. Each attempt emboldened her, pushing her further into the shadows of her own design. Weeks passed, and her plan crystallized into a final act. On a warm April evening, Khalid returned home from a long business trip, tired but ready for a quiet dinner. Emily prepared the meal herself, a gesture that seemed affectionate on the surface. Hours later, Khalid collapsed, his life ending in the very home he believed was safe. The announcement of Khalid's sudden death shocked Dubai's elite. Official statements described it as a heart attack, a fate that seemed plausible for a man of his age and responsibilities. His funeral was held swiftly, attended by royals, businessmen, and dignitaries who praised his legacy and mourned the loss of a respected leader. Emily stood by the coffin dressed in black, her expression carefully composed, accepting condolences with practiced grace. To the public, she appeared to be the grieving widow, but behind the scenes, investigators were already questioning the circumstances of his death. Medical examiners noted irregularities in Khalid's body that did not align with a natural heart attack. Blood samples revealed traces of a rare toxin, one unfamiliar to local authorities but consistent with poisons used in criminal cases abroad. The revelation raised immediate suspicion, and a covert inquiry was launched to avoid stirring scandal before evidence was clear. Detectives began piecing together Khalid's final days. Staff members recalled that Emily had insisted on preparing his last meal personally, an unusual choice given the household's army of chefs. Surveillance footage confirmed she spent hours in the kitchen, a detail that drew their attention. Investigators also traced deliveries made to the palace weeks earlier, uncovering shipments of obscure chemicals purchased under her name. The most damning evidence, however, came from her electronic devices. A forensic sweep of her laptop and phone revealed incriminating internet searches and hidden correspondence with her lover, painting a clear picture of motive and planning. What had once appeared to be a tragic medical event was now unraveling as a carefully orchestrated crime. By the time the official investigation widened, suspicion had narrowed firmly on Emily. The widow's poised facade was beginning to crack under the weight of undeniable evidence. Emily's carefully constructed world crumbled the moment investigators closed in. 2 weeks after Khalid's death, as she prepared for a flight back to the United States, authorities intercepted her at the airport. The arrest stunned onlookers, who watched the glamorous widow escorted away in silence. Within hours, the news spread across Dubai and beyond. The Sheikh's wife was accused of his murder. International media latched onto the scandal, blending the intrigue of wealth, betrayal, and forbidden love into sensational headlines. In the courtroom, the evidence against Emily was overwhelming. Prosecutors presented toxicology reports proving Khalid had been poisoned with a substance purchased through overseas shipments traced directly to her. Surveillance footage showed her preparing the dinner he alone consumed, and forensic experts testified about her late-night internet searches that revealed meticulous planning. Most damaging of all were the emails and private messages exchanged with Claire, where Emily confessed her fears of losing everything if Khalid divorced her. The correspondence exposed her desperation, transforming her from grieving widow to cold planner in the eyes of the jury. Emily's defense argued she was under immense emotional strain, trapped in a life she did not choose and consumed by fear of public disgrace. They painted her as a woman cornered, lashing out under unbearable pressure. But the narrative of manipulation and premeditation proved stronger. After weeks of testimony, the verdict was delivered, guilty of premeditated murder. The sentencing was swift and severe. Emily received life in prison, her once enviable life reduced to a stark cell far from the luxury she had cherished. Claire, though never charged, saw her career and reputation destroyed under the weight of association. The fall of Sheikh Khalid Al-Mansoor's marriage became a cautionary tale. Even in palaces of gold, secrets and lies can end in ruin and death.